Alrighty, came in here and I'm going to show you how you can learn Blender in 20 steps. And you'll be able to make 80% of anything you want. So really quick, I want to show this really quick. That if you want to get to a certain object and like you can't find it or something, pressing F in object mode will take you to it, right? In order to add an object, you're going to do Shift A, and it brings up this menu with all these different things. You might not have all this stuff, but you'll have stuff like sphere, plane, cube, circle, down to cylinder and cone. So add a cube, for example, right? So we got our cube. Say add a new object. If you want to add another object, you just do the same thing. Okay, so in order to use Blender, you need to know tab because it'll show you object mode and edit mode. So yours won't have this pie menu, but you'll push tab, it'll put you to edit mode automatically, and you'll push 1, 2, and 3 on the keyboard to go to vertex, face, or vertex, edge, or face. So you need to know that. So R is going to rotate it. And this works for rotating or scaling, which would be S. So you can do S, Z to only scale on the Z, SX to only scale on the X, or Y to only scale on the Y. 2D objects are not going to have a Z, so just keep that in mind. I'll just keep repeating what I'm doing. So next we're going to do Control R. This is also going to be very used. I use this all the time when I need more edges to be able to make stuff. So you see how I just set that? You can set it by pushing right click. So scroll up and down on the mouse wheel, up and down, increases and decreases, right click, Control R, left click to position how you want it, right click will drop it right in the middle. Push Control Z if you want to undo, Control Shift Z if you want to redo. So let's do Control Z, we're going to do Control R again, this time we'll go on this side. Say we want to do, say I want to put it here. Right, just one. So I left click and it sets it there. Then we have, if you control click an edge, so say I want to go, let's use this example, back over here. Okay, so control click. Let's say I want to do it with an edge. So I want to select just this edge, and this edge. You can do that with Shift to select multiple, but if you have, for example, let me just show you something real quick. Okay, so say you want to select from here to here. You would do Control click, and let's say you had 3 more, right? So it's gonna be like, oh, there's a lot of edges here. But I don't want to have to click each edge. So I can go here, click this, and I can go here and click this, and it'll select this whole length. You can also push Shift again while these are selected, then push Control again and click, and you can select more. And then you can move that stuff like that. Then, if you want to grab multiple stuff at a time, like this, it's called box select. You just hold down the left click and it'll select. This is the X-ray button. Example to show what this is for. So X-ray mode will highlight both these edges, so it's not just the front one that you're getting. Because otherwise it would just do this, and you wouldn't be able to realize until you did it. And you'd be like, oh, I want this edge and this edge, but you would only get this edge because this X-ray mode is not selected. So we can turn on X-ray mode and we can get multiple stuff. And this works for faces. Both the faces are selected. Both the faces are selected or deselected. It works for vertexes. So say I want to only select these 6, right? Those just the vertexes, these little dots. And I can just move that by itself. Okay. Next, we're gonna go over what's called beveling. And beveling is very important to get stuff to look more realistic, because in real life, every edge has bevels. Even the sharpest edge has a bevel, or a curve, if you will. So there are two types of bevels. You can do a single bevel. So you highlight the edges or faces or what you want. You push Control B, and that's called a bevel. Now, you see this? You don't want that. So you just want to go kind of subtle. You can also scroll the mouse wheel up and down. And you see as I scroll the mouse wheel up, it averages the edges more, right? It takes the average, and it makes it more round. This is the key to making realistic models. Right here. Doing this, even on something like the edge of a knife, is going to make it look more realistic than just having a flat surface. Alright, so this is a very important concept. You can do it with that. You can do it with faces. Right here. So say I want to bevel these faces, and this will do that. Right here. So be careful when you're doing it with faces. The more you're beveling at once, you got to be careful of how the edges are reacting, because you don't want this. That's bad. Alright, so after you do bevels, go to the object and press on your keyboard Control+A. This will bring up an important menu, and honestly, I just do all transforms. That's all you really need to worry about. Just trust me, whenever you bevel, use Control+A. It'll be your very great lifesaver for you. Alright, we're halfway done. So the next thing I'm going to show you is how to change your views. A lot of people will use the number pad, but you don't always have a number pad, especially on some laptops. So let me show you how it'll always work for you. Next to the 1 key on the top of your keyboard, there's a little squiggly looking thing. It's called a tilde. Push that down and it'll bring up all the different views you could need. Right, top, and then just hover your mouse over which one you want. This is what I use most of the time. It's a lot more efficient, especially if you're trying to like constantly see different views. It's really nice to be able to do. Alright, so this is going to be a lot better than say like 1, 3, and that's really all I use on these, front and side. But that's on the number pad. Not everyone has a number pad, so I think it's better to get used to using this little squiggly next to the 1. And you can get all the views you need, and it tells you the names of them right here. Okay. Next, I'm going to show you how to duplicate. Right? Press Shift-D. You can drag it. I usually do Shift-D and then Z to go on up and down, X to go side to side, or Y to go back and forth. Because it's usually for like duplicating a piece of an arm or something, or if you pick like a gun barrel and you need a smaller version of it, and you duplicate it and move it over so you can edit it. You can do it in edit mode, but you have to be careful, because it'll treat the geometry as the same geometry. So if I did Shift-D in edit mode, this would be considered one object, right? So now we might as well talk about separating, since I just showed duplicating. So let's say I want these two to be the same object. I shift-click both of them, or I can drag both of them. Control-J, now they're both orange, they're one object. So if I go into edit mode, or like, let's say I press 2, right, to get to edges, I can edit both these at once. And I can do GZ and move them up if I want, right? Next, if I want to separate them, the opposite of joining, you have to be in edit mode. The easiest way to do it, you can select everything, right? Press P on your keyboard, and loose parts will take these two as separate because they were separate objects. They're not connected, so loose parts. And now, when I go back to object mode, by pressing Tab, right? Remember, I just have this menu. I can show you in another video how to get this if you'd like. But default is just to say Tab, and that'll just go to edit mode and object mode. So really quick, I just want to show how to do object and edit mode without the shortcut key. This is object mode. You can click here to go to edit mode. This is the same as pressing Tab. This is just to visualize it, okay? So when you press tab 1, 2, 3, it'll tell you if you're in object mode or edit mode. But that's what tab does visually. And yeah, now I can move this by itself again. Cool. So next, we're going to talk about the World 3D cursor and object origin. This is one of the most important concepts that I think is overlooked and not talked about in beginner videos, but this will make you closer to a pro than not knowing this, because this can cause a lot of problems if you don't know what you're doing. So, pressing Shift S will bring up the 3D cursor menu. The most common one I use is cursor to selected. So, you see why it came up, how it came over here? This orange dot is why it went there, because it's saying the center of the object is there. So, we have to right-click an object in object mode, set origin, and we want origin to geometry. You can also use center mass, surface, volume, but I usually just use geometry, right? If you do center mass, it'll move it here, so it's more like distributed evenly. But those are the three I use, and then we push Shift S, cursor to selected, and now this is your spawn point. This red little dotted circle, red and white circle, this is your spawn point. So if I were to add a new object, say a cylinder, it'll spawn there, right? Also, when you add a new object that's rounded like a cylinder or cone, you can come to this menu before you do anything and you can type how many edges you want, right? And then just click somewhere else. Radius, you can change it, but you only get this in the beginning of it, right? So, now that we did that, I can show you, you can change that and you can move it out, right? So we have another object to work with. How do we combine these? We can shift click them together, we can box click them, box select. If anything is just like frozen or like you don't know how to get out of something, just push escape. It'll get you back to what you were doing, right? See how you do circle select, and it basically works. So instead of like dragging around, it's kind of more accurate in a sense, because if I were to go to faces, right, and I box select, it's gonna do that. It's kind of the same, right? But that's kind of annoying, right? I don't want all this to be selected, right? So if I push C to circle select, I can more accurately just get these. So it's like a smaller radius. If I want to move the object origin, I can. So I can go to here and I can right click, or I can Shift S, right? Because I'm moving the cursor. I use this all the time. This is especially important for rigging. So cursor to selected, right? So it's gonna put it right there. Then you can go to object mode, and once you do this a couple times, it'll become natural, second nature, right? Origin to 3D cursor. So now, this is where it's gonna do its rotation and stuff from. Instead of the center and just rotating from here, going here, it's going to be like R, right? And now you can see it's pivoting from this origin, right? So R, Y, if I want to move it like this. So if I'm positioning an arm or something, very useful. So I'm going to move back the origin to, let's do center mass, right? So this is just a spawn point. If I do Shift A, mesh, say I want to spawn a cube, it's going to spawn from this center, right? This is the world or the 3D cursor. This is the spawn point. 3D cursor is your spawn point, if you think of it in game terms. It's a very easy way to remember it. Okay, almost done. So if you go into edit mode, or you can do it in this mode. So if you want to delete something, press X on an object in object mode, delete it. X, delete it, right? Origin to geometry, right? So this makes sense now, hopefully. So if we want to delete, say, a face or an edge, I usually just use it with faces. Anything else gets a little complicated. But if I want to delete this face, for example, I can push X, face, delete. Undo that. Let's say I want to delete 3 faces, right? X, faces, delete. Oh no, they're gone. What can I do? So I can, now if I want to, select all the edges around it, okay? Make sure you close the whole thing. And you can push F to fill it, right? But then these are missing. So the easiest way to fix that is to go to vertex mode. K is going to be another important tool, but you can get into trouble, so I would only recommend using it now if you need to connect vertices. So you left click on the vertex you want, left click again. How do I get out of it? Press enter, right? Do it one more time. K, right? So I press K, click, drag, press the left click again, enter. Now, these are back. So back to how they were. Alright, we're almost done. Almost done. You can always hide this if you want. If this is distracting, you can hide it by pressing T on the keyboard. And the last thing I wanted to show is this. So if I go to an object, this is one very helpful modifier. If you want to get something done really fast, you can call wireframe, right? So this will make all your edges into essentially a cage. So instead of modeling this by hand, adding a cylinder and extruding and intruding and all that, this will make it like for you. And then you can change the thickness. I hope you learned how to use Blender. Just practice the things, do like 2 or 3 things at a time. Spend a few minutes just learning, like go back and forth, selecting different stuff, going to tab mode, face mode, edit mode, you know, moving stuff around, S to scale it, right? E to extrude. So that's how basically just making a new face, and then you can scale it again, right? So just do that stuff, practice it. And I promise you, I believe within 30 minutes of just like doing these things over and over, you'll be like, oh, I want to make a truck. And you'll be able to make something that looks like a truck because you know how to add the objects. You know how to make different faces, like for the top of the truck and the back of the truck. You know how to move the vertices, and you know how to scale stuff. You know how to rotate things that you need. But yeah, I really think this should be able to help anybody learn Blender, and I really hope it does. Let me know in the comments what you think. If there was something that was unclear, I can go over it. But I really do appreciate your time, and I look forward to showing you more Blender tips and modeling.